Hello and welcome into my attic. Today's video is based on the botanical, boho, primitive, call it what you will, style, which I am really loving at the moment. It's very highly sought after, and I have 3 objects that I'm going to change into that style. The first object is this thrifted vintage frame, which cost me €1 at the thrift market. The second object is this plastic mirror. I would have much preferred wood, but I just could not find one at the thrift market of this shape, and I continually saw this plastic one in the Euro store for €2. So in the end I gave in and just bought this. The third object is this simple little cutting board. I do have 2 of these, but I'm just going to use one in this project here. And as you can see, I damaged the mirror here. It dropped and it cracked. You know, it's just a really cheap piece of crappy mirror. There's not really much else I can say about it, but I transformed it beautifully, and now I really love it. So keep watching and, you know, discover what I did to it. The frame here I used in a really quirky way. I didn't do it because I wanted something quirky. I did it because I preferred it like that. I thought it looked better the way I did it rather than the way it should be. So, well, I'm going to start with that, so you'll see what I mean as we go along. So obviously the first thing I did was I gave it a good clean up. Then I printed out on copy paper just some random writing that I did myself on the computer. I just printed it out and coffee stained and dried it, and that is what I'm going to use for the backing of my picture. Then I took a kind of cereal box and just used wood glue and water mixture like Mod Podge to glue my printout onto the card for the backing of the picture. Whilst that dries, I'm going to add 4 little blobs of wood glue onto my frame to stick down my glass because I don't want it to move about. This glue dries transparent, but you can use any glue that you prefer. I'm going to weigh the glass down with this stone so it gets a good adhesion, just waiting for it to dry. When it was dry, I cut out the shape that I needed. Then I took some flowers, dried flowers from an actual bouquet that I had, and I'm just going to stick that with the wood glue onto my chosen surface. So at this point you're probably asking yourself, what's so quirky about this frame? There's nothing special whatsoever, it's just a normal dried flowers in a frame. Well, the quirky thing is that when I stick this backing onto the frame, I'm not going to stick it onto the back, but I'm actually going to stick it on to the front because I really like the raw wood of the back of this frame. I think it gives it a really primitive Spartan look rather than, you know, a really elegant defined look as it would have if I used the front as the front rather than as the back, if you get my meaning. Yeah, so if you like that old botanical look, something that you could find like in the 1930s, or I don't know, in the study of Charles Darwin, for example, you know, exaggerating here a little bit, but yeah, but that is the look that it has, and that is the look I was after. So I really like this. Yes, and at the moment it's a really sought after look. So fantastic, just for €1, not bad. Now, although my glue is transparent, you can still see the marks. So what I'm going to do before I glue it all down, I'm going to take these adhesives here, which I previously painted with a rusty paint look, and I'm just going to stick these on top of the glued corners so that you can't see the glue. Okay, so you can't frame a botanical plant without naming it, of course, without giving it a label. So I did that from my computer, just typed out the name which I found on Google, and then I just coloured the piece of paper just by dabbing a used tea bag on it until I come to the colour that I wanted. And then I just dried it off with the hairdryer quickly, added 2 little dots of glue, glued it onto the backing of the frame, of the picture frame, and then I applied 2 faux studs, which I made from Diamantes. They was in my stash already. I did them like a long time ago. I just added a kind of rusty coloured paint to the Diamantes, and I glued them on as if they were like studs on a journal kind of look, hoping it gives it a look of authenticity. Okay, now that's done, it's time to close up the picture. So I just put my glue down onto the backing of the picture and put my frame down, face down, on top of the glue so that the backing of the frame is face up. So here we have the botanical frame finished. I'm very pleased with it. It looks so authentic, and I'll definitely be doing more of these in the future. What do you think? Do you like this style? Do you try it yourself? It certainly looks like it belongs in a study of the 1930s. I will eventually hang it in my entryway, I think. For my second primitive boho project, I'm going to be making over this super sad mirror. Now, I wouldn't blame you for thinking, oh my God, what on earth are you going to do with that mirror? It is just a mess. Well, that's what I thought too. And then I got an idea. And believe me, it came out gorgeous. So just keep watching. Usually when I paint on plastic, I'll roughen it up with sandpaper or I'll put a primer on it. But because the frame was broken and I glued the pieces together, it wasn't enough. So I thought I'm going to have to put masking tape on. So once I'd put the masking tape on, obviously I had to paint over the masking tape. And it turned out to be a really good mistake because it painted really easily, and I don't think I'll ever go back again. So if you need to paint plastic, using masking tape is a really good way of painting over it without having to get all dirty with dust and washing brushes and things like that. So yeah, it was a good mistake, and I'm glad it happened in a way. I also protected the edges of the mirror with masking tape so I don't get paint on them. I know you can scrape it off, but I just prefer using masking tape. And I covered the mirror with cardboard because the light was glaring into it. So I did a couple of coats of brown acrylic paint, and I'd also added cornstarch, bicarbonate soda, little glue. I always put those things in my paints because it thickens them up and it gives them a better quality, and it also makes them matte. So that's what I used. When the paint was dry, I used a crackle medium. Then I painted it over with this creamy coloured acrylic paint, which once again had cornstarch, glue and bicarbonate soda in it. Maybe it gave me a problem because I wanted small cracks, and I dried the crackle medium with a hairdryer before applying the paint, the creamy paint. So once I did apply the creamy paint, not a lot of cracks seemed to happen. It seemed to more like make my paint puff up a bit with very, very little cracks. So, you know, I don't know if it's the cornstarch and the glue and all the things I had in my paint that was the trouble. Maybe if I'd just left it without all the, just left the acrylic paint without all the cornstarch, etc. in it, maybe it would have cracked. But anyway, I like the outcome all the same. You know, I would have liked more cracks, but I didn't get it. But, you know, I repeat, I still like the outcome. I did that passage twice, so 2 coats of medium and 2 coats of paint. I'm also wondering, could it have been the masking tape? Because I have used this paint before with this crackle medium and it did work. I don't know, it's a very finicky crackle medium, this one, this Fleur it's called. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and I can't understand why. But anyway, important that I like the outcome all the same. That's the important thing. So at this stage, it looks like it's a project of a 3-year-old. Yeah, I admit that. So don't lose heart, keep watching. Just wait till the end to see how gorgeous it turns out, if you can believe that. Okay, so when that was completely dry, I went over the frame with antiquing wax, just brushing it over and then wiping it off until I was happy with the end result. So I'm happy with the outcome of this. The masking tape still makes it look a little bit tacky at the moment, but once I take that off, it kind of imitates wood to me. It looks like wood. You know, the crackle medium didn't crack very well, but it did leave a few little cracks and crevices, which the antiquing wax seeped into, and, you know, that shows up a little bit. And so, yeah, overall, I like the look of how it turned out. But it's still not finished, so let's see the next step. So now it's time to pull up the masking tape, which I did a little bit brusquely, pulling up a little bit of the paint as well. But no worry, there is a solution for that as well. So I took some rope and just hot glued it around the rim. Here I'm just tidying up a little. So here's where the fun begins. I took 3 different sizes of wooden beads. Then I mapped them out around the mirror to see how many I would need. They looked gorgeous, a natural colour, but I wanted to colour them in. So I chose my 4 colours and worked out that I needed 5 beads of each colour. The very tiny beads I left natural. So I painted 6 beads blue, an extra one just in case, and then I wiped the excess paint off with tissue paper. I did the same with green beads, with orange beads and with brown beads. Then I just tossed them into an old rag and smothered them in antique wax and rubbed it all in. Then I measured out some twine and I painted it a rusty colour. Of course, that's something optional. Once the twine was dry, I began threading on the beads, and I kept a tiny little bead alternating between the other beads. Once all the beads were threaded onto the desired length that I needed for the mirror, I tied a knot and I hot glued the knot down onto the mirror. I didn't hot glue all the beads onto the mirror. I just hot glued the north bead, the south bead, the east bead, and the west bead. All the equally divided beads that were in between, I just put a little bit of wood glue on the backs of them and just pressed them down onto the frame of the mirror and let them dry naturally. So sorry for not showing that, but it is pretty straightforward. It's just a question of calculating how many beads you need, really. So here's the reveal, guys. I really am happy with this, considering what it was before. If you don't like beads, then maybe you could use seashells or even nature, something like green leaves. I think that would look really nice. Well, I hope you like it. And now on to the next project. My third project was a faux fossil which I made from a Christmas decoration. As you can see, this is a plastic seahorse with red glitter on it. I sanded off the glitter and gave it a good wash. It's very in keeping with the boho botanical primitive style. So the first thing that I did was paint it with my usual brown acrylic paint with my added cornstarch, bicarbonate soda and glue in it, which is a very sturdy paint. I did a couple of coats of that and dried it off with the hairdryer. For this project also I used my crackle medium, which once again didn't crack too well, but it did make my paint a little puffed up, which resulted in being an excellent medium for making a fossil. I painted it with this off-white colour. I just gave one coat and I still added my normal cornstarch glue and bicarbonate soda in with the mix. So this here is the only crack that formed, unfortunately, but luckily I still like the outcome of it overall. I then took my cutting board and began to roughen it up. I slivered off pieces of wood. I scratched it all over. Then I hammered holes into it to make it look like it had woodworm. So I brushed on some antique wax and then wiped it off, and I was really pleased with the outcome of it. To me it looks like a real fossil, like kind of bone, but you know it's not real because it's got an intricate design on it, but all the same it's a really nice quirky piece. So for the backing of my fossil, I'm going to stick this old page onto the cutting board. Then I added clear wax and antique wax to the cutting board. Then I took a strip of wood, which I have in my stash already. It's 2.5 meters long and it just cost €1.50. Very economical. It's easy to cut with gardening shears. So I just measured out a frame for my seahorse and just cut it out with the gardening shears. So this wood is new and I want it to look old and grungy. So as before, I'm going to sliver pieces of wood out of it and make holes in it just like I did before. Scratch it up and make it look old. Then I painted it this blue-grey kind of colour. And when that was dry, it transformed when I sandpapered it. You can see the difference here, so I'd say it's important to sandpaper it after. Now these dark strips here, I've had in my stash for a really long time. I made them myself a long time ago. All they are is cereal box that has been painted with a rusty finish. And you know, the rusty finish is nothing other than acrylic paints with lots of cornstarch and bicarbonate soda in it, glue, some orange, brown, you know, just like to make a rusty colour. And that's all it is. And I'm going to use these to, just for a matter of interest, to stick underneath my little blue sticks. First of all, I'm adding masking tape to the back of my blue sticks to keep them together and some glue as well. I cut out my rusty strips to the same size as my sticks and I glued them to the back with wood glue. So to make the frame look even older, I'm going to go over the frame with a black paint wash, just made with black acrylic paint and water, very watered down. It looks so much more older and grungier with this. Because it's so watery, I dry off the excess as well. So I have these square screws or bolts. They're just made of plastic. The whole packet just cost me €1. They're nothing special. But painted a rusty colour, which I'd done previously, they are very convincing. They do look real. So I'm going to use those and just wood glue them onto my little blue frame. To make it all look a little bit more authentic, I'm just going to stick them down willy-nilly without planning any symmetry or anything like that. Somehow I felt that this project needed some string for some reason. So I just got some old white string and I dyed it in the black wash that I used previously just to dirty it up a little bit. Once I dried the string off, I tied it around the frame. Obviously, this just serves as decoration. I found this grey carpet binding edging in my stash and I thought it would go well with the frame. So here I'm just cutting it up a little bit and staining it a little bit just to try and make it look a little bit old so it goes with the whole look of the rest of the frame. I simply glued it on. And then I glued on the whole blue frame. I didn't use hot glue, I just used wood glue, so I weighed it down a bit with a book just for a couple of hours. I thought I'd give my poor seahorse an eye, so I just glued on a diamante, like before, previously painted a rusty colour. I glued on my seahorse just by putting on a couple of dabs of hot glue. And last of all, I dirtied up the corners with a little antiquing wax. So here's the reveal, guys, and I must say that my fossil looks much better with an eyeball. Well guys, if you like these projects, please give a like and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!